may we be. May we be. We talked about may we be happy at the beginning of the month. And I talked about the idea of holding on to things and letting go of things. And I shared with you the story about the water buffalo. And the farmer that held on, and he held on to his water buffalo as he tried to get away, tore off his finger, and the moral of the story was, sometimes you just need to let go of things. So, the next talk was, what was it? May we, what was it?
May we be happy.
Happy?
No, that was the first one.
Be well. May we be powerful.
May we be powerful. And I talked about finding our purpose, that we can truly unleash our own power, the power of spirit within us, by being identified with what it is we love to do. What's our calling? What are we here to share? And there could be one main thing, or many little things that you're here to share your gifts through. Like that hummingbird, flitting around, sharing lots of little light, or one main focus. So whatever that is, may you be powerful, may you tap into your power and your purpose and share that with the world. So my talk for today is, may we live and love with ease. May we live and love with ease. So what does that mean? Now for this series of talks, I've researched heavily into Buddhist psychology, the teachings of Buddhism, and the premise of ease is that we can live with ease and flow and live in harmony with life, or we can struggle and resist and have dis-ease with life. We can love what is, or we can hate what is. We can live in the flow and be easy about things, or we can resist things and judge them and find them difficult. So we see within this teaching the opposites here, and there's nothing wrong. Everything has its opposite. Maybe one thing doesn't, but I'll let you think about that. So we'll be looking at what it means to live with ease. Now, it seems like us in the West here, and I'm sure it's all over the place, I'm from England and I know we struggle with the same thing, that we get caught up in this idea that everything has to be a certain way, and we get really tied into trying to control things, to manipulate them, to make them go our way. And we're not really encouraged to adopt this sense of being easy with things. Marianne Williamson said, ego says, once everything falls into place, I'll feel peace. And spirit says, find your peace and everything will fall into place. I like that. Find your peace, inner peace, and everything on the outside will resemble that inner state of being. Do you believe that? Yes. Yeah? Sometimes? Are you all experiencing a great life of peace? No. Then what's wrong? If it starts with us, if it starts with the inside, with us being the cause, because that's what we are cause, the first cause of everything that we experience. It starts in here and then it manifests out there. So we have to be the peace first before we can see the peace. We have to be the happy first before we experience the happy. Yeah? Okay. So today I'm going to be sharing some ideas of what causes us stress. And I think it really, once we get to the end of this talk, you'll begin to see that it's really perspective, because stress happens. There are always going to be stressors in our lives. Just as there's light, there's dark. Just as there's up, there's down. We're always going to experience the contrast, the flow, the ebb of this and that in life. So, I found some interesting statistics. One of the stressors, it seems like, that we've kind of got seduced into thinking is normal and we have to have these things in our lives, is our technology, our smartphones, our computers, our tablets. And I started exploring, well, what is this obsession with these screens? You know, you see people walking around with these screens, these phone screens, these tablets in front of the computer. What is this going to do for us? How is this going to alter our evolution as a species? Our obsession with these screens. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with technology. It's fabulous and marvelous. But there has to be a balance. We've got so consumed, it seems like, with computers and smartphones and this and that we're maybe missing some opportunities to be engaged with nature, with the natural world. And maybe there needs to be, the pendulum swing needs to come back to center. And like the Buddhists say, we take the middle way. We take the middle way with this, so we balance our energies here, being with nature and being with technology. So the statistics are, did you know that the average amount of time a child spends in front of a screen is 6 hours a day? Did you know that the average person checks their phone 110 times a day? Now I can hear the ones that are doing that. And that's up to every 6 seconds in the evening.
What?
Sick.
This averages out to 9 times an hour. That's my husband.
6 minutes.
And then how many times do people check their emails?
Never.
So talking about emails and perspective, I have a story for you. A Minneapolis couple decided to go to Florida to thaw out during a particularly icy winter. They planned to stay at the same hotel they spent their honeymoon 20 years earlier. Because of the hectic schedules, it was difficult to coordinate their travel schedules. So the husband left Minneapolis and flew to Florida on Thursday, with the wife flying down the following day. The husband checked into the hotel, and there was a computer in his room, so he decided to send an email to his wife. However, he accidentally left out one letter in her email address, and without realizing his error, sent the email. Meanwhile, somewhere in Houston, a widow just returned home from her husband's funeral. He was a minister who had died following a heart attack, and the widow decided to check her email, since she was expecting messages from relatives and friends. After reading the first message, she screamed and fainted, and the widow's son rushed into the room, found his mother on the floor, and saw the computer screen which read, "My loving wife, I've arrived." I know you're surprised to hear from me. They have computers in the room now. I've just arrived and been checked in. I see that everything has been prepared for your arrival tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you then. Hope your journey is as safe and uneventful as mine was. P.S. Sure is freaking hot down here. So, you see, it's a matter of perspective. Things aren't always as they seem to be. Things aren't always as they seem to be. And so as I started thinking about this, things aren't always as they seem to be. So why are there so many people struggling? Why are there so many people suffering in the world? And so I lent on this idea, this Buddhist teaching of refuge. Refuge. Just like the sound of that word, it sounds relaxing. It sounds like I'm going somewhere in refuge. The Buddhist teaching on refuge offers 3 different gateways. The concept of refuge is the triple jewel. And it's a teaching that Buddhist teachings offer to help us move away from the false refuges we take. Now, a false refuge might be your iPhone, your smartphone. A false refuge might be a story that you live within, a victim story, my illness, the loss of my loved one, my difficult childhood. Sometimes we take refuge in a story and we don't realize it. It becomes the atmosphere of who and what we are. And so this teaching explores what we take refuge in. What are we hiding out in? Where are we existing that could possibly be causing us stress in our world? So these 3 refuges that I'm about to offer give us some perspective, maybe a different perspective on the struggles and the dis-ease in the world and in your life. Now the first one, you take refuge in the Buddha. The second is you take refuge in the Dharma. And the third is you take refuge in the Sangha. You're probably saying, what is she talking about? So I will explain. When you take refuge, and each of these are ways of none of them, there's no hierarchy here. Each one of these could be taken individually and used as a spiritual practice. So I'm going to explain each 3, and you can try out one for the week, or you can adopt a practice of all 3. You'll see. So the idea of taking refuge in the Buddha represents consciousness, a deeper awareness, a deep residing stillness and presence. So could you, in the midst of your hectic day, when you're in the midst of stress, instead of turning to the smartphone or switching on the television or taking 1 too many glasses of wine or whatever other thing you may be interested in taking false refuge in, could you take refuge in being present, meditation, being deeply grounded in a deeper sense of expansiveness beyond what our mind is rambling on about, but maybe a deeper sense of contemplating the stillness, the quietness. Is it, even as I say that and feel that, isn't there a deep sense of something beyond what you know already? A deeper sense of freedom? Just in pondering the thought? No? Mm-hmm. Because that's what most of the Buddhist teachings is about, freedom. Freedom from the mind. Freedom from attachments. Freedom from clinging. Freedom to false refuges. The second one, make sure I'm not missing any important little pieces for you. Oh, I have something to share from Chogon Trungpa Rinpoche. And he says this about refuge. In the Buddhist tradition, the purpose of taking refuge is to awaken from confusion and associate oneself with wakefulness. Are you awake? Are you paying attention? Taking refuge is a matter of commitment and acceptance, at the same time of openness and freedom. By taking the refuge vow, we commit ourselves to freedom. Wow, what if we had learned that? We could take some vow and commit ourselves to freedom. We don't bother with things like that here. I'm being silly. I'm sure there's lots of people that do. but in general. He goes on to say, there is a general tendency to be involved in all kinds of fascinations and delusions. And nothing very much ever takes root in one's basic being. So what could he be talking about? Fascinations and delusions. Everything in one's life experience concerning spirituality or anything else is purely a matter of shopping. Our lives consist of problems of pain, problems of pleasure, problems of point of view, problems about all kinds of alternatives, which make our existence complicated. So, we can move into the gateway of moving into the refuge of consciousness, or we can go to the second facet of this triple jewel, which is the Dharma. The Dharma, everyday life, what's happening right now, the teachings, the wisdom that is present if we have the ears to hear it. The truth of the moment, what's here and now, this is the second facet of this beautiful jewel. So the Dharma is so rich. There's so much that we just don't even ponder to think about as we get consumed with our false refuges. When we think about some truth that we'd like to immerse ourselves in. There's a certain way of being at peace with the now moment and easy. Have you ever met someone like that that's very peaceful with what is? It can seem like there's a lot of rocky ups and downs, but there's those few people that can sort of stay the course and be the presence of peace. And the Buddhists talk a lot about the life being like a river. It's always moving at different speeds, and there's always obstacles in the way. So when we think about the ups and downs of life, and we begin to dive into this, moving into refuge with Dharma, it speaks of being at peace with what is. Whatever the life seems to bring down the river, whatever's coming, there could be financial challenges, there could be great financial prosperity, there could be health issues, there could be vibrant health. We seem to always be flowing down this river of constant change. And sometimes we experience things that our ego doesn't like at all. But if we take refuge in knowing that this too shall pass, that there's a deep wisdom in this being completely engaged with everything as it comes and goes, and not being attached to it, not clinging, but staying centered and present with who and what you are, we'll just notice that there's thoughts that come and go. Terrifying thoughts, wonderful thoughts. And if you just notice, if you're not attached to those thoughts for a moment, and you just notice that they come and go, kind of like a bird flying across the sky, you can allow that bird to fly across the sky without leaving a trace. But how many of us cling to every thought, cling to it, and take refuge in that thought? He shouldn't have done that. My son shouldn't be sick. My bank account shouldn't have been overdrawn. And then it's as though we then shrink into a mere shell of who and what we really are as a wonderful expression of the divine to be this thought. We become our head. We become so narrow and focused. Have you ever been around anyone that's narrow and focused on something difficult? Can't you feel that? There's an energy to it. And it feels like you won't love them, but they're just not allowing it in. So I came across another story because I know you so well, and you just love stories. I'm talking to myself right now. By the way, I just heard for the 172nd time the Orion Mountain Dreamer poem. And I was connected to a line in that poem, The Invitation. Has anyone heard that poem, The Invitation? And she says, close to the end of this poem, I want to know if you can stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. Now I take that as taking refuge in the Dharma, being present with what is in a way that you can show up as loving kindness or whatever is needed at that particular moment, that you can show up in the difficult times as the presence of loving kindness and peace versus the presence of grief and sadness or the presence of something else. And of course there's always grief and sadness too. So can we stand in the fire? And so as I started thinking of that, I started thinking of the journey that I had had with my son in his illness and being present in the difficult times. And I thought that those difficult times are often the most amazing times as you look back. So I found this story, and this is written by from a book called Kitchen Table Wisdom, authored by Dr. Rachel Naomi Raymond. And she tells of the story of a young man named Jeff, whom she describes as the angriest patient she'd ever treated. Now she's a cancer doctor. Jeff was an avid athlete, popular and handsome. Then he was diagnosed with osteoorganic sarcoma. In order to save his life, the doctors had to remove his leg. Jeff awoke from the surgery a different young man, angry, resentful, and bitter. He believed his life was over now that his body was imperfect. Jeff fell into a depression, and he began using drugs and drinking heavily. A concerned former coach referred him to Dr. Raymond. In their first visit, she could tell that Jeff harbored great anger at the doctors who saved his life but had had to amputate his leg. She asked him to draw a picture of his body. He angrily scribbled a vase with a large crack in it, tearing the paper as he finished the drawing. Jeff continued seeing Dr. Raman, who kept the drawing of the vase in her desk drawer. Soon Jeff started asking about how other kids lived with an amputation, and he started coming out of his anger. And the doctor recommended he volunteer at a hospital, visiting young amputees like himself. And one day, Jeff meets a 21-year-old woman recovering from a double mastectomy because of a horrible history of breast cancer. The young woman could barely look up from her hospital bed. After several attempts, Jeff looked down at his leg. He took off the prosthetic device and dramatically dropped it. He started hopping around until finally he heard the woman start laughing. She looked up, saying with a smile, "If you can dance, then maybe I can sing." Jeff continued visiting the young woman, and many years later they got married. During Jeff's last meeting with Dr. Raymond, he beamed with a smile as he walked into the room. Dr. Raymond pulled out the drawing of the cracked vase that Jeff had drawn nearly 2 years earlier, and she handed it to him. And studying it, he said, "You know, it's not really done." And he took a yellow highlighter from Dr. Raymond's desk, and Jeff drew vibrant yellow lines extending out of the crack in the vase. And Dr. Raymond gave Jeff a puzzled look, and smiling, Jeff replied, "This is where the light comes from. This is where the light comes from, the cracks and the fissures and the imperfections, the hard knocks and the hard turns." Sometimes we have those experiences, and things don't go according to plan, and things happen that we didn't expect, things that crack us open. Can Can you stand in that kind of pain and be present enough with it that you can foresee the light that will come from it? That's what we can do. As we begin to focus on how we show up in the world, with the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, of allowing the Dharma of life to be our biggest motivation for shining our light. I've got one more. The next refuge is Sangha. Now Sangha, in its broadest sense, means spiritual community. So we can take refuge in spiritual community. Now again, we take refuge in false refuge and things that aren't so empowering. So could we use spiritual community to find a deeper sense of self and purpose? Sangha also represents our relationships. We can use our relationship in something tangible, something meaningful, something that promotes your growth, your spiritual growth and shining your light. And maybe let go of some of those false refuges. I know that you don't have any in this room, but just in case you know anyone else that. So thank you. Namaste. So let us go into prayer. So it's time to turn within and go to that place that never changes, that deep ground of being that is always changing but never changing, that is everything all at once, beyond time and space, it's time and space. In this realm, everything is perfect. One life, one power, one presence, one infinite organizing intelligence that's always responding to us, responding to our thoughts, responding to our emotions. So in this awareness, in this recognition, I see that each one of us is infinite, infinitely powerful, infinitely loving, infinitely giving. I see that each one of us is a radically unique, differentiated being here on earth to bring forth love and kindness. So I speak for all of us today. And if my words align with your heart, then these are your words too. May all beings, without exception, be free from pain and suffering and the root cause of pain and suffering. May all beings everywhere be free to love and live with ease. May all beings release anything that is standing in their way of fully embracing a life of true abundance, love, creativity, and passion. May all beings feel this sense of spaciousness and freedom. And I know that everything starts with a thought. So I lovingly plant this prayer thought into the fertile soil of mind, knowing that everything is energy. And collectively in this room, the energy of all of us here creates a synergy that is the energy that is greater than the sum of its parts. So let's together hold this giant prayer seed that all beings without exception, all sentient beings, everywhere, beyond time and space, past, future, right now, experience living and loving with ease. Just see that rippling out in all directions like a wave of tsunami light. Rippling out, touching hearts and minds, bringing people together, putting smiles on people's faces. Let us know that our intention, our prayer creates a ripple of change right now. Like Gandhi said, be the change you seek in the world. Let's be that now. Let's be happy. Let's be joyful. Let's be loving. Let's be of service. Let's be giving. Let's be generous. Let's be kind. Let's be abundant. Let's be whatever it is we want to be. And share that abundantly with the world. Wow, we're so blessed to know that. Just feel it. Every cell in your body is reorganizing itself for ease, for vibrancy, for success, for joy. That's how powerful we are. Thoughts create. Thoughts affect the cells of our body. Let's know this. And know that we've initiated change right here. The YCC, the Satya Center in Ogden, Utah. It started here today, right now. Let's see it. Rippling out in all directions. Bring it back into your heart, knowing that you are a change agent. We're so blessed. We're so grateful. Thank you. And let's say together.
And so it is.
Woo! All right, so this is our time to share and give. We, here at the Satya Center, we like to bring to mind this idea of the 10% increase law. And so what we do here at the Satya Center, everything that you give here, we give out. Not everything, 10% of it goes out into the community, supporting other organizations, institutions, people that feed us spiritually. So we continue to allow the abundant flow of the universe through us. Another thing is, we have Kelly in the back of the room there. He's been filming us. Have you been watching him? He's been filming the talks that we give here. He's been filming all kinds of workshops and the other things that we do. He's been posting these on our YouTube channel, the Satya Center YouTube channel. He's been posting them on Facebook. They're on our website. So if you have family, friends, or whoever that might like this, that they're afraid to come and be around all this high vibe, then you can send them to go look at one of those links. And they can get a hit on what you've been experiencing here. So this way we're extending our message out. We also have an opportunity for them, and you, if you choose to give, to donate for this service of happy sitting in your living room and not having to come here. But you should still come. So just so you know, thank you, Kelly, for having all of that available for us. And thank you for being so generous in supporting the works that we're doing here at the Satya Center. So we have an affirmation, a blessing of our offering. So if you will, with me, you can get my offering. Let's say this together. Joyfully I give with gratitude.